So it's great to be able to have a little conversation with the two of you as we go into Racial Justice Sunday, this Sunday. It's a big year as well. It's an election year. There's going to be a lot of talk about migration and immigration. So racial justice, I think, is a hot topic and one that we need to be able to talk about as Christians, as people in the church. So I thought I'd start off by asking you both how your own Christian faith sort of informs your thoughts and attitudes to racial justice. Is there, I don't know, a passage or a biblical concept that really jumps out at you?
Yeah, should we go first, Priya? I think justice is at the heart of being Christians, really, isn't it? One of my favourite verses when we talk about justice is Isaiah 1:17, I think, where it says, learn to do good, seek justice, and help the oppressed. So it's almost kind of like Isaiah is, speaking on behalf of us that have got faith and follow God to say, actually, we should be actively trying to do something for those people that might be mistreated.
And I like that it says learn to, because we're all trying to grow in this, aren't we? Yeah. How about you, Priya? What would be your thoughts?
Yeah, so I just want to talk a bit from my kind of personal background and actually kind of South Asians, their faith and their culture is kind of entwined. So growing up in a Christian environment, I'm kind of separated away from my Eastern context. And I found myself in this weird third space of being connected to my culture through music, dance and films, but being disconnected because my church spoke English or we kind of follow kind of Western theological doctrines, and I thought there was a part of me missing. But then when I started to study theology, and especially the Old Testament, I found that a lot of Israel's principles were very similar to the South Asian family style. And I think a part of me was reconciled there by recognizing the same sorts of concepts and stuff like that.
So is that sort of like owning your Christian faith a bit more embedded in your own culture?
Yes, definitely. And I'm not trying to say that Israel is the same as Indian culture, but I'm saying that the similarities kind of help me reconcile my identity a bit. So,
that's good. And how does your reflecting on your Christian faith, how does that affect your thoughts on racial justice? What's the Bible said to you about that?
Yeah, I think, there's a verse in the law, I don't know quite the specifics of it, but it talks about God loving equity. God reigning with equity.
What does that mean?
And for me, that means raising those that are below and humbling those that have kind of superseded that. So everyone's kind of reigning together. And I think the fact that that is embedded in Yahweh's law gives me comfort because it's within the principle of who He is.
Great.
Listen, I like that, isn't it? Because I think equity is like we get to see each other.
Yes.
So instead of just trying to treat each other just like the same, even though that might not work because we might come from different understandings or knowledge or other things, that actually equity kind of says, I see you.
Yes.
And how do I respond to I see you and treat you based on what your needs are.
Which is so important because it means we actually need to be having these conversations and actually really listening well to one another, which is why I love that our church is becoming so diverse, because I think when we're all in different churches or even just in different groups and pockets, we don't have those kind of interactions. Is there anything that is encouraging you there was a lot of conversation about racial justice just a few years ago after the death of George Floyd. Do you think we've made any progress? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been encouraged for us as a church, actually, that, we've had a conversation about it, and actually actively we've been seeking to make those changes. I think one of the things that we speak about a lot is about being an intercultural church. We're not talking about being come to our church and then you try to fit into our culture. It's saying that actually, equity, we see you all. Okay, what can you bring in? And we can't expect one person to do the same thing. So I think in the last few years we have definitely seen our church progress into looking more like God's family, I would say, where there's people of different colours and creeds coming together, worshipping together in one common goal, and loving one another. And it's exciting to me that that's happening. And I think from moving the front, We are seeing more people that don't look just like British out there. It's exciting.
We're making progress.
We're making progress, absolutely. Intentional progress, I think. What would you say, Priya?
I think the very fact that we're having this conversation here is progress, because we're not shying away from issues that often can be swept underneath the rug because it's awkward and we don't kind of want to like speak wrongly about different societies, different communities. I think being able to be vocal about it is progress, and not keeping voices silent. And I also think, you know, our church has a fantastic kind of intercultural motive behind worship music, and being able to sing in different languages together, all as one church. So the congregation is full of different peoples from different backgrounds, and we're all singing languages from each of those communities. And I think when we're worshipping the same God through different languages, it again brings that unity and diversity.
That's the glimpse of heaven that we get in Revelation. But I'm sure there are things that you'd like to see more of, where we could perhaps make a bit more progress. What would your thoughts be there?
I think we're talking about justice, ain't we? And we're talking about intentionality. What would it look like as a church and as individuals to step up more to actually pursue justice? You know, I mean, we mentioned that Isaiah verse of like learning to do good. So sometimes we might want to, but actually, how do we learn to do good on behalf of others, not just ourselves? How do we get to the point where actually people know within our congregation or outside of it that I know if I come to reach, I can speak to somebody that will hear me, support me, encourage me, or go on my behalf in situations that they might find difficult. Because, you know, it's good that we're making steps as a church, but as a society there's still some difficulties. There's some people that are still treated unfairly in their workplaces and other places. So actually how do we become more visible and allow people to know that it's okay, you can come with this, or we will get the help and support. And maybe in us as well to have like that, I don't know, that righteous justice anger to go like, let's go and do something. And I think that's what I love about our young people. If you go to Derby, Nottingham, wherever, they're like, because this righteous justice, like they're like, we want to go and do something. Why is this just like this and nobody doing anything? I'm like, if we all had that, like we're
standing together, advocating for
one another.
I also think we see that principle in the Bible, like the book of Proverbs in chapter 8, Lady Wisdom stands outside of the gates, you know, shouting out for justice. She's vocal. And I think that kind of encapsulates this kind of generation being able to, you know, stand outside, advocate for what we think should be right, and being bold enough to do so. I'd probably say for me, in terms of where we could get to an aspiration for this one, is really being intentional about how we disciple those from different backgrounds. And actually, something that I've kind of noticed being kind of raised up as a training leader here is actually being honest and open with my leaders about things that I find offensive. And being like, actually, you know, even though that's a biblical principle, could you perhaps see it from my perspective?
That's good, That's the principle, isn't it, of speaking the truth in love. We've talked about that on previous Sundays, but I know I've got blind spots, I'm still learning. I need people, I need you guys to say, hey, have you thought about this? This is how it comes across. There's all sorts of issues of power that we just sometimes, that's us white guys doing this.
But I think learning from each other is great.
Absolutely.
Actually having a conversation, and you know, I kind of realised that I had this one perspective, you know, being an ethnic minority, thinking that I was always right, and that's not the case. Actually, I can learn a lot from my African brothers and sisters, and I can learn a lot from my English brothers and sisters, and it's not, you know, one way is the only way.
Absolutely. I think at the root of it, we all want to be united in our faith in Jesus. That's our commonality, and it's what draws us together. Then actually, if we focus more on our identity found in Christ, then it makes a massive difference, and we treat each other with more love and compassion. And I think, you know, we were talking like before, like over a year ago, we did an exercise about privilege. And I was kind of coming into this conversation thinking, I must be the least privileged person here, or black African man, whatever. And actually, for Priya, you know, you were even less privileged than I was. And because my probably lens had not probably thought about other people, just looking at myself, probably didn't realize that actually there's more going on. But actually, when we find our identity in Jesus, I think going back to what I was saying earlier, we get to see each other as Jesus sees us.
Yes.
Yeah. And therefore, we can treat each other in that way, so we can see the injustices that happen for other people, because we're going, actually, no, this is not the way that I would want to be treated. So actually, how do I speak to you? How do I pray more for you for this situation?
Yes. Seeing each other through the eyes of Jesus, the honour that Jesus gives each other.
Yes.
That's right.
That's the thing, you know, when we talk about Galatians 2:20 and Jesus living inside of us, it's like Jesus in you sees the Jesus in everyone else. I think that's it's like an acknowledgement that I see, like what you were saying earlier with equity.
Yeah.
I see the Jesus.
Yeah.
I want to honour that.
Well, thanks, guys. It's been a
Amazing.
lovely conversation.
It's been great, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should run for Prime Minister or later on this year. I'll vote for you, Priya. Yeah, you can all vote to her.
I'd rather stand outside of the council gates with a sign. So.